It required only starting a war in Ukraine for me to fully forget Russian forever.
You understand that this is not a quick thing. We're going to need to live through this.
I was thinking, like, what the hell am I doing by stopping our career?
Hi.
All genres now are doing these national protests against all of these chicks.
The Russians were shooting at us as we were leaving.
Thank you, man, for making my school years less shitty.
Music and music gatherings and all sorts of cultural events are really necessary at this time.
We are punk rock musicians. If we can provide any type of support for Ukrainians with music, we should proceed.
Hi, this is Joe Lindsley talking to you from the Carpathian Mountains of Ukraine with Ukrainian Freedom News and our Speak Freely, sometimes called Speak Shitty, near daily war journal. With my Ukrainian friend and co-host Zakhar Pikh, we interviewed members of the Ukrainian punk band Dity Inzheneriv, whose music you can hear in the introduction to this podcast. By way of a little explanation, we conducted the interview at Zach's family homestead, where we'd been moving and chopping logs for winter fuel in case there will be no electricity because of Putin's war on Ukraine. A little bit of the reality of daily life here. In between the log chopping and moving, again, a little explanation. I drank a little of Zach's father's amazing Ukrainian moonshine called Samokhanka. Really fantastic stuff. And I think it illuminated and enhanced my questions, as you can see during this interview. So here we speak with two members of Dity Inzheneriv, whose name means Children of Engineers, Serhii Pukhov, bass player and songwriter, and Alex Zamai, guitarist with the band Dity Inzheneriv. Here is our conversation. Welcome to hello, this is Joe Lindsley, Speak Freely podcast, our near daily war journal from Ukraine. And I'm Joe Lindsley.
Hello, darlings. It's Zakhar Pikh from Lviv, Ukraine as well. And our guest today, it's a new Ukrainian rock band, Dity Inzheneriv, was mean the
Children of Engineers.
Hey, I'm Serhii Pukhov, bass player of this band. I also write music and lyrics.
Hi guys, I'm Alex. I'm a guitar player of the band.
I had heard your music because of a Ukrainian activist who was helping people in Hong Kong fight for their freedom. So like last fall, Ukraine, everything was fine and everything was free. This is one of the freest countries in the world, inspiring other people around the world. And you came out with a song, in translation, it would be textbooks in Ukrainian. And it was about the Chinese government is abusing the people of Hong Kong, the Uyghur people in Taiwan. You as a Ukrainian, why were you as a Ukrainian band? Why were you in before the Russia's war? What was your original motivation as a Ukrainian punk artist to side with the people of China? And what do you make of it now that we're actually in the situation that you were talking about?
Part of our performance, a fight against all kind of bullshit. Unfortunately for me, I started reading Orwell too late in my life. Started from Animal Farm, then to 1984. If you know stories from China, it's kind of scary how close it's getting to what I was afraid of by reading that book. В Китаї зроблено наші підручники. So our textbooks are made in China. The textbooks that they provide, how we learn, let's say, history, might be impacted by what they want us to read in the textbooks, by what they want our children to read.
When you were writing this song, as Ukrainians in 2021, protesting Chinese mistreatment of its own citizens and of people that wants to be its citizens, like the people of Taiwan, did you feel a connection even back then as Ukrainians with the people of China?
For sure, yes. It happens that gladly for us. We also used to fight for our freedom through our history. We are still managing to do that. And unfortunately for people of Hong Kong, it's really, really messy because the power that they fight with is massive. I feel the struggle. All I can do is writing songs and pointing people's attention to this problem.
The way I understand the song and the way I internalize its message may be a bit different from Serhii, but like I'm as a listener, I consider myself a first listener of our music. And for me, it's not about if I'm from Ukraine or somebody's from Hong Kong. For me, it's about the idea overall. So like people are oppressed and stripped down from their basic rights, no matter where they could live or just because of the circumstances they were born in. And so I personally emphasize quite strongly, sorry, empathize, not emphasize, but I'm empathizing with the people throughout the world with their conditions, regardless of where they're from, because I, as an individual, grew in the place where there was a lot of oppression and there is a lot of bad situations because of the corrupt government or whatever. So no matter where the government is or no matter where the people from that situation are, I think it's a message that anyone of us could understand.
Serhii, you told me, I mean, you grew up speaking Russian, right? And you made a change to speak Ukrainian a long time ago.
I can even tell you more. We are both, me and Alex, from the same city. It's called Chernihiv. It's in the north of Ukraine. And I was raised in the bubble when I was thinking that no one speaks Ukrainian. In my hometown, I almost never heard Ukrainian except schools. We learned everything in Ukrainian. But then otherwise, when you leave the school, everyone speaks Russian. I had a long road for switching to Ukrainian. I tried many different things. Like I was trying to do that, let's say, politely, not radical, just switch and so on, because I have Russian relatives like my grandmother. It required only starting a war in Ukraine for me to fully forget Russian forever.
Really, from February 24th, you...
No, not a single word. Even with my old friend from Belarus, we decided that I'll talk to him Ukrainian and he'll talk to me in Belarus language.
In March, you said that you stopped your musician career, like musician work.
When the war started, we already had releases planned, and it wasn't the feeling that we want to promote our music and post songs at the moment of war. So the next logical decision was to post a single message saying, like, we're not musicians right now, we're civilians who are fighting for a country. There are things that are more important than the music at that moment, because it was more survivalistic feelings than the music. But then once the dust settled a bit, I think Serhii can speak to a moment where we had a discussion about the music.
Our long story short is that we had the release of our very, very nice song that I really love a lot, which is Rupti. It was planned for February 25th.
Sorry, it's not the same Rupti, no.
Well, no, it is.
No.
It is.
No,
The soup.
No, it's not the soup.
No, it is.
It's
right?
not the soup.
No, not really. Sorry, it's scar. Yes, not the soup.
Oh, it means scar. It's scar. Yeah.
Yes. So this song was planned to be released on February 25th. When we were...
Yeah, it's a lot of shit in Ukraine was planned on February 25th.
Yes. So, and in this, let's call it madness, we were all trying to, every day we were waking up, hoping it was all a bad dream. When I realized that our songs that we planned they're getting through, like they're posted, but during the war, I wanted to emphasize on that we are not making music during the war. We are postponing all our stuff until the victory. At some point of time, I was sitting there in the Western Ukraine and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? We are punk rock musicians. If we can provide any type of support for Ukrainians with music, we should proceed.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
The amazing Ukrainian musicians. Yeah, Chudova, Muzika. You talked about punk music as, this protest music, and you have a beautiful philosophy of what punk music should be. And it's a resistance music. I spent the past month in Skola on the river Opir, river resistance, where I learned a lot about Ukrainian history through the past 1,000 years. And then I've seen, as I've traveled this country during the war, I've been on road trips through Donbass and to Zaporizhia, Kramatorsk. While I'm traveling in the car through the beautiful fields of Eastern Ukraine, the steppes, always we're listening to the radio. Most of the songs are new songs or covers of old Ukrainian folk songs with incredible energy. And I hear the entire nation sort of mobilize through the music. When I was traveling these roads, I realized that all that music that I have listened to on the pubs on St. Patrick's Day as an Irishman, those songs were written when their whole existence was under threat. I mean, it was when the Irish were trying to be free 100 years ago, and up until 1922 or so. And I really realized how music, maybe 100 years from now, people were singing the songs that are being made today, like, oh, well, drink. But these songs are made now so that people can survive and have the energy to keep going. And you guys have made a number of songs during the war. What's your view in general of Ukrainian music since the war started, Ukrainian creativity, and then also specifically about your music since the war started?
I have a story to tell about that. I did not have a car at that moment, so my wife and I, we were tightly coupled to Kiev. But a friend of mine, he was very scared, and he prepared the car for a few days before because, all this media was posting about that the war is going to start. And in the first day of the war, when we woke up because of explosions, in 1 hour, he pulled us into a car, and we were out of the Kiev just to see what's going on. Then we traveled to our friend in the West, and we stayed there for a while, for 3 months. First few days, like week or two, were so harsh for me because it was a lot of stress, as you can imagine. Probably all the people present here probably went through this. You can imagine what it was. When I finally found my headphones, it was like 10 days past, and it was such a relief. After all this media watching 24/7, people that you live with and seeing what's going on, it's a lot of stress. When I finally listened to my music that I love, it was a relief. So that's why it was one of points why I was thinking, like, what the hell am I doing by stopping our career? If we have something to say about, and if we want to be heard.
You're hitting the great point there about the cultural renaissance of the Ukrainian music at the moment. I think everybody went through this sort of short arc, the way Serhii described, where for some time you were shocked, you didn't know what you could feel or you cannot feel. You wouldn't listen to the music, and music would be something odd to you. But after a while, once you understand that this is not a quick thing, we're going to need to live through this, you start looking for the tools that make you an escape vehicle in order to feel something. And so happened, I have a theory that anger is associated with quite aggressive music or a hard music, I would call it. And so happened that the way we write songs, this is something that comes up of ourselves naturally. We don't think about this. It's just, if you give me a guitar, it's going to sound like this. And so I think once the general wave of shock went through and the people were starting to look for those outlets for the emotional relief, our music just hit one of the notes of one of the nerves among the people in the population. And I've known so many great musicians, young musicians nowadays, who are also posting their music just honestly without too much of a production or too much of a thought put into, just about what they feel in any genre or any style that they're working on. And that music gets great acceptance, and it's so valuable for me as a musician to see this whole scene is blooming from all the new talent or people who had played for many years just coming back and playing the songs that they want. So yeah, I think that the culture is really rising.
Of the music around, what is the most similar to you?
The manner that I use is something that we came up with, but based on my very, very first experience with punk rock and hard rock music. Offspring, because my father was like AC/DC fan, and there was a lot of like metal, hard rock, and I found Offspring, and I plugged it in, and since then it's still one of my most favorite bands. I adopted the aggressiveness of the early Offspring because it was the album from 1992, before they went from punk rock to pop punk. It was quite, let's say, depressive and aggressive. Also, I had very huge impact by Linkin Park.
Tell us what punk rock is. Did your view of punk rock change since the war started?
I would say, in other words, that for me, there are two very, very similar genres, and you probably will be amazed of comparing these two, but I compare punk rock and original rap from 80s. Punk rock music for me was the first genre that started speaking openly about huge problems in society and starting cultural fights regarding that problems. Because previously people were singing about like million songs about love, and no one was singing about wars. No one's thinking about justice. No one's thinking about other thousands of problems that we're seeing and people were seeing then. Based on that, I cannot say that my view on punk rock changed. I could say the opposite, that my view on other genres in Ukraine changing, because now in Ukraine, you cannot sing about love. You cannot sing about happiness. People still manage to do this even during the war, but all genres now are doing these national protests against all of these chicks. When I was listening to punk rock, I was a shy, tiny kid, 10-year-old. I wasn't aggressive.
Everyone.
I would say I was oppressed. I wasn't aggressive. I was like the misfit. I remember what that music did to me. Chester Bennington from Linkin Park died. I remember one tweet from a person who was saying, "Thank you, man, for making my school years less shitty." The music was aggressive for sure, but it wasn't for aggressive people. It was for people needing that music. And for our perspective as well, even if it's songs about our war.
So I see what you're saying, like to make music that makes the situation less shitty. The Russians were shooting at us as we were leaving. I can't pronounce it quite.
Okay.
We were listening to Ukrainian radio, and like that music was carrying us through the process. You know, literally, and as it does for so many people. I think I want to hear your music on Ukrainian radio. So the last question I want to have to you all is, how could you possibly be making music during this time?
The music is some sort of a communal act that the people are allowing themselves to be a part of. This is something like a trans religion, transcultural, trans times is the thing that connects people universally. Some sort of a music or a song or a sound or a performance. And I think the live music and the concert is this act of everything sonically, visually happening at the same time, where people can gather around and feel as a part of a bigger community and be inside of the music field, so to say, together and share this experience. And this is very important in the times when the times are bad and you're feeling not the best, and it's so nice to have a community to connect and share kind of joyful moment, but also share sad moment of that moment in their life. So I think like music and music gatherings and all sorts of cultural events are really necessary at this time, because this is a vehicle to be a community and to share this time and experience.
And Serhii and Alex, thank you for sharing your music with us, because we're putting that in the I made that the intro of our podcast, and I want to share that with more and more people around the world. I love those words, "Welcome to Ukraine, punk," because it shows the rebellious nature of the Ukrainians and the completely free spirit of this country. And it's beautiful music. And yeah, you guys are inspiring. So
Thanks, Joe. That's great.
Thank you, Joe.
Starting out from somewhere. I'm not sure where I am. I came here to help my friend with his family prepare wood for their winter fires, so to get through the winter. And this has been Speak Freely, Near Daily War Journal from UkrainianFreedomNews.com with the great band Dity Inzheneriv, Serhii and Alex.
You're my Joe. Thanks a lot.